Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? Jason to my right and my left, depending on which way you're looking at it. Jay, how you
Buddha.
doing this evening on this Sunday night? I guess we call it a little special edition tonight, huh?
Yeah, I would. I mean, hey, it's St. Patrick's Day Eve. I just got done slamming down my corned beef and cabbage, and I'm just finishing up my Guinness, and I'm looking forward to talking baseball with you and Michaela, my friend.
Right. Speaking of Michaela, I saw she was at the winter meetings, and I messaged her and said, "Hey, let's talk baseball." And that was all I knew about this girl.
Awesome.
So let's bring her in, and she can tell us all about herself because I didn't do a good job at finding any information out. Michaela, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys tonight?
Doing well. Thank you.
Good. Well, yeah, I was at the winter meetings, like you said. I was there covering all of baseball, but specifically at the time, the Royals and the Cardinals, working with a couple different networks at the time. So that was actually my second winter meeting. So I went to the one last year in Nashville as well. So this year in Dallas was a little bit different, but it was nice. So now I am in sunny Arizona. So that's why it's still daylight here, because it's still Pacific time, covering the spring training. Been out here going to a lot of the different games out here, talking to the guys and seeing what this season's going to look like.
So, Michaela, I have a sister who lives in just outside of Tucson. She lives about 20 miles outside of Tucson. Where are you located?
So I'm in Scottsdale. So I am
Scottsdale.
very close to like everything. So yep, I'm in Scottsdale.
Awesome. Cool deal.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jay, your team is not there anymore. They're in Japan getting beat by the Hanasek Tigers or Haniskin, whatever they're called. They're on a little bit of a roll right now against our major league players. It kind of scares me a little bit.
And correction, they're getting swept by the Hanshin Tigers. Not beat, getting swept by the Hanshin Tigers.
I didn't want to say all that, Jay, but yeah, I did see that.
That's okay.
It's spring training. It's early.
Yeah.
Actually, what they start in 2 days, right?
Yeah, they start in 2 days. They're playing the Cubs in 2 days, and Mookie Betts won't be on the opening day roster, but I guess he came down with some kind of a flu or a stomach ailment, so he won't be on the roster. But like you said, it's still early. I'd rather he gets sick now than get sick, September 24th or whatever, whatever important date that would be.
Right. Obviously,
Yep.
Jay's a Dodgers fan, and I've already given them the division because of what they've done in the offseason. Now, Michaela, what do you think on the
I
Dodgers?
tweeted the other day that I do think the Dodgers will win the division. I think it's, if they don't, that's a big disappointment with everything they did this offseason. So I'm giving the division to the Dodgers as well.
I'm looking forward to the NL West this year, guys. I agree, not just because I'm saying it because they're my team. I agree. I think the Dodgers will win it, but it's going to be another fun division this year. I think Arizona is still going to be a good ball club. Their rotation is going to be a lot better since they got Corbin Burns at the front end of their rotation. The Padres are still the Padres, but until they take a step back, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt and know that Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jake Cronenworth, and those guys are still going to be a very productive lineup throughout the season. The Giants, I think, will be a little bit better. The Giants are going to be a tougher out this year. And as far as the Rockies are concerned, well, the Rockies are the Rockies, and Dick Monfort can bitch and rag all he wants about my team spending money. Why don't you go out and spend money on your team, Dick, before you start criticizing the other club?
Oh, Jay. So you just
What?
mentioned it. So, all right. So I made a list of. I saw something today, and I didn't want to read it, but I did, and I kind of agreed with the whole thing. But anyway, they ranked. I think it was CBS, and they ranked these three teams are probably going to lose 100 games again. Do you guys agree? Disagree?
I can see it. Yeah. I mean, the White Sox for sure. That division, like we said earlier, is kind of a toss up for everyone except the White Sox. And they didn't really do anything this offseason to change their luck from last year. So I think they're just hoping their prospects are going to come up and pan out a little bit. And I mean, Colson Montgomery did have a very nice play today at shortstop, but you can't just rely on the young 21-year-old to come up and be your star when you have no one else behind him. So I can easily see the White Sox. I don't think the Marlins or the Rockies are much farther behind them. So I can definitely see 100-loss teams by all three of them.
Can you see the Marlins getting better with all the prospects and all the trades they made last year? When do you think that all the trades are going to finally work out, if they ever do? I said if.
I don't know. I think a big question mark is if they are going to trade Sandy, and when and what they get for him. Last year at the deadline, they were picking up a lot of guys, and they were actually picking up a lot of guys that were getting DFA'd. So a lot of guys that just didn't quite make it, they're like, we'll take a chance on them, send them to AAA. So they had a lot of guys last year in the transactions that have showtime that are just sitting in Jacksonville right now that are, ready to come fill some holes. But I don't know what they're really thinking right now.
Yeah, Adam, I got to agree with Michaela on that one. White Sox, it's a given. They're going to lose 100 games again. They did replenish their farm system to get a lot of top 100, top 50 prospects, but those guys are at least 4, maybe 5 years away from even still getting a cup of coffee in the big leagues. The Marlins, who knows what they're doing? In my estimation, the Marlins are the National League's version of the A's. They get all these prospects, they groom them in their farm system, only to turn around and trade them 4 or 5 years later for other prospects. And plus, when you look at the situation with their ownership, the situation with their front office, there's just so much unorganization, so much discombobulation down there in Miami. They literally don't have a blueprint. They don't have a direction for where they want to go. So it's easy to see the Marlins losing 100 games this year as well. As for the Rockies, I'm going to say they'll probably lose 90. I'm going to say 95 games. The Rockies have some intriguing young players that have talent. I think Ezequiel Tovar is on the cusp of being one of the next great players at his position. He's a four-tool player. He's got great speed. He's going to win a Gold Glove, I think, before his career is all said and done with. But aside from that, Chris Bryant is just a shell of what he used to be. There's not much else there as far as veteran leadership. So I'm pretty much in agreement with Michaela, with the exception of the Rockies. I think the Rockies will lose maybe between 93 to 95 games, but definitely Marlins and White Sox chalk them up for 100 losses this year.
All right. Next group, I have the Angels, Athletics, Giants.
Who wants to go first? Michaela, you want to go first?
How many losses, how many wins are you just putting these three together?
I put these three in the tier of possibly in the 80 losses.
Okay.
They did make a little bit of improvements. Obviously, the Angels, every year, it depends what Mike Trout does when he gets injured, because it seems to be more of when, not if. And that's bad. That's not a good look. They did make a couple transactions into that team, but I still don't feel it's enough. I mean, I just don't. Their pitching is always atrocious. The division's open, but it's not really open. It just seems like the Angels always shoot themselves in the foot. The Athletics, I mean, they did sign Rooker to the long-term extension, and I really don't know.
To an extension.
What's that?
They signed Lawrence Butler to an extension.
Yeah, they did 2 extensions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know. I don't know where to put these two. I mean, it looks like this is. I would say that this is Seattle's division this year, kind of. No.
I think Texas. I'm sorry, I can't take Seattle.
I'm with you.
I can't take.
Even though they do not have a 5-day starter now, they just lost 2 players. They have Eovaldi and DeGrom. Oh my God!
Adam, I say Texas because I just expect them to have a bounce back year. They have a good veteran core of players that they still had intact from when they won the World Series a couple seasons ago. The reason why I'm not buying into Seattle is because they have arguably the best pitching as a team in all of Major League Baseball. They led MLB last year in wins, ERA, opponents batting average, opponents on base percentage against. They pretty much led the league in every team category in pitching, but they wasted it because they were dead last in hitting. Jerry Dipoto was on the major hot seat this year as their GM, a former Angel, by the way. Jerry Dipoto and Rocky was on the hot seat this year to make their offense better. Now, yeah, he went out and got Randy Arozarena at the trade deadline last season, but Arozarena never caught fire like they thought he would. And he was under pressure this year, especially at the winter meetings, and Michaela would probably know more about this than I would, to get some hitters to add to that pitching, and he didn't do it. And even Justin Turner himself said on the way out the door, he said, look, they're wasting a hill of gold with that pitching staff up there, and they didn't get any offense to protect that pitching. So I'm sorry, Adam, until Seattle does something to add more punch to that lineup, I'm giving the AL West to the Rangers. Michaela, do you agree or do you differ?
No, I agree with you. Same thing with Seattle. I saw Justin Turner said that, their pitching staff is one of the best. And they're nasty. And it doesn't matter how good your pitchers are if you can't score runs. Doesn't matter if they shut everyone out every single night if you can't put one run on the board. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I'm going to harken back to 2003 when the Dodgers led the National League in team ERA and when they were the best defensive team in the NL, when they had Cesar Izturis at short, Alex Acora at second. No ball got through the infield. Their pitching was legit, but their offense couldn't punch their way out of the paper bag. And that's how I see the Mariners this year as being the 2003 LA Dodgers. They, aside from maybe two or three hitters, that's it. They don't have anybody else.
Yeah, going back to, these three teams that you said, I think the Angels are a big question mark. I don't know why, but they signed Kikuchi. He was decent last year for the Astros at the trade deadline. He was okay. I thought that was a weird signing, but it's big question mark. I think, again, they have a lot of young guys that they're trying to rely on. Didn't really do anything. It's such a shame that Mike Trout is there wasting away because MLB deserves to see him in the playoffs, and we just aren't getting that.
It's just the year he gets traded?
I don't know.
I mean, we talk about this every year, and every name comes up going back to Philly, this time back home and everything else, and then he goes nowhere.
Adam, I don't think so, Adam. I mean, when you look at the makeup of the Angels roster, Mike Trout is the only selling point that they have on that roster, healthy or not. And if you trade Mike Trout, it's tough enough getting Angels fans there in Orange County to go to games anyway with Trout in the lineup. But if they deal Trout this year, obviously no Shohei there. What incentive do the fans have to go watch Angels games? Yeah, Logan O'Hoppy's a good young player. Zach Neto is legit. He's going to be a star. But, I mean, those guys aren't bankable the way Trout is. I don't think they can afford to trade Mike Trout simply because, A, of what they're trying to do, and B, because of the current makeup of their roster. And they're still on the hook for a lot of his contract, too. So, I don't know. I think all those make him a little bit untradeable right now.
I think, like you just said, one of the dumbest things that I ever think the Angels did was not trade Ohtani because they got absolutely nothing for him. Absolutely nothing. You could have filled your farm system to the brim with prospects and you got nothing and you didn't re-sign him. You can still re-sign him and trade him at the deadline, but they did nothing. And so I think that's where I don't think they'll trade Trout unless Trout asks for it. I don't know, but I think one of the sleepers in that group that you had, I do think the A's are going to be a better team than we think.
Yeah.
Because they're out of Oakland?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting playing in Sacramento, playing half their games there. Don't know if that'll help them or hurt them, but I think the younger guys are stepping up. I think Lawrence Butler will be an all-star this year. Brent Rooker, great guy. I think those bats are getting hotter, and I don't think they'll win the division. I think that's going to go to Texas, like we said, but I do think they're going to be better than we think. Giants, I think maybe they improve a little bit from last year. I mean, they signed Verlander, but who knows what
And
that's going to look
and
like.
Adamas.
Yeah. But who knows what that's going to look like. So I don't really know. I don't think they're going to be super competitive in that division. But I think my sleeper out of those threes will be the A's.
Yeah, I agree with Michaela. I like the A's a little bit better also. And also I like Mark Kotsay as their manager. I know there's nothing really flashy about him, but I think he is the right manager for that team at the juncture in which this organization is right now in their history. He's a fiery guy. He believes in all those kids in the clubhouse, regardless of win, lose, or draw. And they love playing for him. At least everything I've read and heard says that they love him as much as he loves them in the clubhouse. So yeah, he's a good guy in the clubhouse. And Kotsay was a baller and a gritter when he played. He was one of my favorites to watch. Not only defensively was he legit at his position, but he was a guy that played the game the way it should be played. He went out there and played all 27 outs like they were the last outs he was ever going to have. And he brings that intensity into their clubhouse. So I'm with Michaela. They're going to be a little bit better, not by much. Will they be a wild card contender? No. But they'll be a little funner to watch and a little bit more competitive.
I think we're going to see some full stadiums all year in that thing too.
Yeah, I've been to that ballpark in Sacramento because obviously I live here in Fresno, which is only about 4.5-5 hours away from Sacramento, and it's a beautiful minor league ballpark. But I mean, you're right. You're probably going to have 5 or 6 players on that roster hit more than 30 home runs in that yard because it's just the dimensions are really small, and especially on summer nights up there in Sacramento, it tends to get a little humid because that ballpark is adjacent to the American River. And so on those summer nights, the humidity tends to float aloft there. So that ball is going to rocket out of that stadium during July, early August.
All right. The next bunch is about 8, I think, 7. These are all the teams that didn't make the playoffs. And I guess now we can start looking, are they going to improve enough to make the playoffs? Washington did a little bit, but I don't know if they did enough. Obviously, the Reds finally got a good manager. And then I feel they have a good ball club down there. They just maybe weren't run right. And I think Francona can really step in and turn this club around. But that's just me. But I was hoping Francona came to the next team, the Pirates, but that didn't happen.
Well,
it would have been nice to see some home love in there since he is from Pittsburgh.
Of those teams on there that I think are going to contend, I do think, God, I want to say Cincinnati, definitely. I know that this is a crapshoot because all those clubs you have there, Adam, they're either on their way up or they're on their way down, depending on how you look at their situations. The Twins, for example, Twins have a good core, but they can't stay healthy. And Royce Lewis just yanked his hamstring today trying to leg out a single going to first base. He's supposed to have an MRI tomorrow to find out if it's a strain or a tear. So they can't stay healthy. You can't bank on Minnesota. The Blue Jays, I'm sorry. I think the Vlad Guerrero's contract situation is going to loom over them a little bit. It might be a distraction. I like Cincinnati the most out of that club. I think they're ready to compete in the NL Central right now. I think Cardinals in transition, Tampa Bay, who knows? Pittsburgh, who knows? So yeah, I think Cincinnati probably out of that group will be the only team to really seriously contend this year.
I am a little uncertain about all of those teams, I would say. The Nats, the Reds. I think the Cubs are going to take that division. But
they're on the next list. They're on the next banner.
Okay.
You know, the Reds, they, like you said, they can be competitive. I think the Pirates, they should be better than they were last year. But again, I mean, you're putting kind of a lot on Skeens and, you know, your young prospects. And I think they're still a couple years away.
We love our three top core pitchers, though.
Oh,
yeah.
It's 4 and 5. It's 4 and 5 we question.
Yeah. Well,
like I like Bubba I like Chandler. I also like, I mean, obviously Herney's going to be the number 4 guy we're thinking. but I like Chandler to be in that 5th spot. Before we had Hurney, I like the other kid that was down in AAA. What was his name? Hamilton, I think.
Yeah.
But I think Chandler is going to be the number 5 guy. We got this kid named Connor Griffith, who should be decent. He might even be on the roster starting this year. Who knows? It's going to be close. He's hitting the hell out of the ball down there in spring training right now. So I think the Pirates can win a couple more games. Can they finally be above 500? That all depends. Now, maybe if we ran a lineup or a schedule like we did where we played everyone in the division 18 and 19 times instead of 13, there's a good chance they could be.
Yeah.
But
the Rays, like you said, I don't know. Their whole stadium stuff is kind of just, I mean, playing at Steinbrenner this year, those games are going to be miserable. I've been in Florida in mid-July afternoon. It's going to rain every day in Florida. At some point, it will rain every single day. Don't know what time. So there's going to be a lot of sitting and waiting. And it's going to be a lot of, okay, well, we got to move the game up. We got to move the game back. What happens during hurricane season? I don't know. But I think that's going to be a big factor that people aren't really thinking about. And it's Steinbrenner. Like, it's not your home. Like, it's different. The Cardinals, the biggest question is when and if is Nolan going to be traded? I thought he would have been this offseason. I think he wanted to go back to the West Coast where he's from, and no one really wanted him. I was surprised that he blocked the trade to Houston, but I think he's kind of seen, okay, maybe there isn't a place for me and I'm just going to stay in St. Louis. And it's a very different team than it has been because the veterans are out. I mean, it's historically been an older team and now it's the young guys. And I mean, they're one of their outfielders, Jordan Walker, was a first rounder for them. And he's a big question mark on what they're going to get out of him. He's had 2 hits in spring training.
Disappointing.
His ceiling is so high and he's just not living up to it right now. And I don't know if they just brought him up too early or what, but I think there's a lot of guys like that in the Cardinals org right now. So I don't expect much out of them at all, which it's hard being from Missouri because the Cardinals historically have been a very good franchise. I mean, they got second in the division last year. I really do believe in Ollie Marmol as the manager. I think he's a great guy for the job, but their talent really just needs to mature on the field a little bit. Blue Jays, like you said, Jay, I think Vlad Jr.'s contract is kind of a big deal and a black eye right now because of everything. So I don't know how competitive they'll be. I think some of their young guys are good. But I don't know. Some of the guys that they got at the trade deadline last year should be impactful for them. And the Twins, again, that division's kind of just like wide open, we said. So that's where I'm at on these. I think they're just question marks all around.
So, Michaela, you mentioned Nolan Arenado earlier. Since you covered the winter meetings, let me ask you this. How much word of mouth did you hear about Arenado actually being traded? Because in the weeks and months leading up to the winter meetings, he was a fairly hot commodity. Everybody thought it was a given he was going to go to Los Angeles. I wasn't convinced because if Andrew Friedman and Stan Kasten really wanted him in LA, they would have traded for him before the winter meetings and then attempted to restructure his contract or tell the Cardinals, hey, you take your half of the contract, we'll take the other half. So when you were covering the winter meetings, how hot of a commodity was he? And was he ever even really close to being traded at all during the winter meetings?
I think that was, I talked to Ollie Marmol when I was there, and it was almost like you're talking about him whenever you're asking questions about the Cardinals, but that was like, okay, this is what the team looks like with him, and this is what it looks like without him. There was a both. And so it was any moment it could change, and everyone knew that. And the team was kind of speaking that way, and the manager was speaking that way. Marmol was speaking that way. And so it was a big, like, okay, just when is it going to happen? And it was almost like you had the tweet ready. It was just fill in the blank of what team Nolan's going to, and it just never happened. So it was weird that it didn't, but it was very much an anticipation of like, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So many rumblings of where he was going. and it just didn't ever happen. So I think it's gotten really cold. I think Bregman held up a lot of it, his signing. But I think after that, people are just kind of realize like Nolan's contract is heavy. And I don't know how much St. Louis wants to pay of it and what other teams are really willing to, contribute. So it's a big, I think because he's also had down years, until he goes out and proves himself right now, no one's really going to take him. I think maybe New York could, but I don't know if he'll, approve that trade or not. I was surprised that he didn't approve the trade to Houston. I'll say that.
Yeah, I kind of was too. I thought Houston was the best of all the teams he was rumored to go to, LA, Arizona, San Francisco, whoever it was. I thought Houston was the best situation simply because Bregman was on his way out of Houston, regardless of whether it was Boston or somebody else. And plus the Astros still have the makeup of a fairly quality team there, especially in the AL West. But, my belief with Nolan is that obviously the Cardinals are going to keep him for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they wait and see if he catches lightning in a bottle during the first half of the season, and then they turn around and flip him at the July 31st trade deadline. And that will also let you know how serious they are about kind of rebuilding with, stockpiling more draft picks and more prospects in their farm system.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what they're hoping for right now, is that he comes out and he's just a whole new Nolan, and he has a rebound season, and they get, they have a winning trade on their side. But yeah, it was definitely interesting being down in Dallas and waiting for that news to come through, and it just never did.
It's crazy. So, how many reporters were down there with you?
Oh, I mean, there's hundreds in the media room. So there's some that are there, just covering one team. There's some that are there covering a couple. There's some that are there covering, the whole event. And then there's fans around as well. So there's like credentialed areas and there's fan areas. So like you can only go certain places with a credential. So there's hundreds of people walking all around the hotel. But, there's so many different networks and so many different, you have teams, but you have every level of the teams too. So it's just kind of depends on obviously the Yankees are going to have more reporters than, the Rockies will there. So, and some people only come for one day. Some people come for two. Some people come for the whole week. It just kind of depends.
I'm just curious, how did you get picked for that?
So I was there with the network. So I was covering for FanDuel Sports Network. So we submitted for my credential. So you have to apply with MLB to get a credential for that.
Now, did you have top tier?
There isn't tier. So it's just you have a media pass or you don't. And then MLB Network is there. And so obviously they have a little bit of higher clearance. But there's no oh, you can't go past this point because you only have X, Y, and Z. But then there's plenty of people that are there doing their own stuff that they didn't get a credential, but there's players and fans and people and GMs walking all around that you could just grab them and be like, hey, can I do an interview real quick?
So then from that standpoint, Michaela, you don't need to contact teams' PR departments and say, hey, I want to have an interview with Ollie Marmol or with Matt Quatraro. You can just walk up to them without a schedule and say, hey, I'm Michaela. Can I talk to you for a little bit?
Kind of. I've had a good relationship with the teams. So I know them. So I work with the PR team, but historically and usually you go to the PR person of the team. But then also every manager has media availability. So he'll sit in a press conference and you go there and you ask all your questions. He's there for 20, 30 minutes every day. And then you can request one-on-one access as well. And then because their schedule is very busy and they have manager only meetings, they have manager player, manager agents, they have a lot of stuff where they aren't even around that we don't know about. And so just getting in contact with the PR person definitely helps because they know their schedule.
Interesting.
That's
okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're living the dream, Michaela. You're living
the
dream.
Right? I'd love to be in your seat.
It's definitely a chaotic week. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And it's really weird because there will be times where you're like, okay, nothing's happening. Like last year, before the Ohtani news, nothing was happening. It was it was silent. And so everyone's just like kind of just, hey, you want to grab a coffee? Like you guys want to, catch up. And it's a bunch of reporters, catching up. They don't, you don't usually see all the reporters throughout the year. So it's catching up, talking to them. And then whenever news breaks, everyone just goes to their computer and has to write a story, do an article, whatever, do a video. So it's very much like depending on what is all happening in the news cycle, how busy you are. And, when things start going fast, it's just like you don't know if it's going to happen at 2 a.m. or, 2 p.m. So that's the fun and beauty of sports and baseball and free agency.
Very cool.
All right. I am on these teams. I feel like we already talked about two of them.
Yep.
And actually, we mentioned Arizona. I think the Red Sox have a chance, even though that division is very, very tough. A lot of people are predicting the Red Sox to actually go to the final dance. Michaela, I'm with you. I think the Cubs have a legit chance to win this division in the Central.
I think the Cubs, and watching them out here, they're good. And they're AAA guys. There's guys that have been playing in the big league camp that got optioned. They didn't make it to Tokyo. They are very
that rookie's on that team right now, and I don't remember his name, but
Matt
he's hitting
Shaw?
the ball good. Is that who it is?
There's a prospect, Matt Shaw, third baseman. He's doing well.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he had been hurt here, and so they didn't know if he was gonna make the trip, but he's doing well. They got Ryan Presley to go be a closer. They got Tuck, in the outfield, and they have a lot of good other outfielders as well. Kevin Alcantara he debuted last year, but he's a very good outfielder for them as well. He played in the prospect game last night, hit a couple home runs. They are stacked, and I think this division is theirs to lose. But I expect a lot out of them right now, and I think they could win. Red Sox, I think they should win the division, especially with the Yankees injuries right now.
I'm picking the Red Sox, but they got to stay healthy. They got to stay healthy.
But they went for it. They went and got Buehler. They got Crochet. They got Bregman. Like they went for it. And if they don't, make it to the playoffs, this is such a disappointing season. But I don't think the Orioles really did a whole lot this offseason to compete.
No, losing Corbin Burns, and they seem to just lose like everything. Yeah, I'm sure Rab's going to have some comments on this.
So I think the Red Sox, they should win the division. I think Diamondbacks are going to be better. They're a young team. I think they're an exciting team. I do think that's a tough division with the Dodgers and the Padres in there. So a little iffy. We already talked about the Rangers and the Mariners. So that's my thoughts on those teams.
I think the Rangers took a setback with the pitching today.
Yeah, I've already said what I had to say about the Rangers and the Mariners. Same thing pretty much with Arizona. I think Arizona will be the number 2 team to challenge LA out there in the NL West. Again, Corbin Burns, I wanted him to be a Dodger for 2 years. So Arizona, I think they got a diamond in the rough. Hopefully he can stay healthy because he's logged over 200 innings on that right arm of his for, I think, 4 of the last 5 seasons. So hopefully Burns can continue to be a horse in that rotation. I agree with Michaela and Adam. I agree with you guys too. I think Boston's going to win the AL East. They have some good young talent there. Tristan Casas, Cutter Crawford, the other kid, Christian, he's good. And Bregman hopefully will be kind of a stabilizing veteran presence for that young core of players. And look, let's give Alex Cora some credit here. Alex Cora is a damn good manager. I know that last season they didn't think of it that way, but Cora has a heartbeat on his team the way Dave Roberts does with the Dodgers. And so plus when you look at Cora, the way he manages a game, very similar to when he was an infielder and when he played. He's always looking at how the game is going to play out. He's always looking at different positions, how they affect the game and how they affect the certain situations of the game. I think Cora is one of the best managers that we don't talk about. And I also agree with the Cubs. Cubs are scary dangerous. And if Kyle Tucker goes, and if he has a slash line of 30, 374, and 976, Cubs are going to be that much better. So, yeah, I like all those teams that we just discussed there as being serious contenders this year, with the exception of the Mariners.
I mean, Jay, I really don't want a Mariners jersey unless it's that Ken Griffey Jr. jersey that you have.
Yeah, one of my favorites of all time.
Michaela, are you a jersey collector?
I'm not. I think
you don't have to be. You're in the city. You're in there.
I think that comes from like working in it. Like I'll collect stuff that like my colleagues, if they're former players, they'll like sign something for me or something. Something like that. One of my colleagues, he caught the Mets no-hitter. So like he's got stuff from that. And so things like that. But otherwise I'm not. I mean, I have, Royals jerseys from growing up, but nothing that I'm like collecting.
Cool.
I got to meet Robin Yount. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's not the only one, but Robin Yount was, because it was unexpected. It was when I worked at PNC Park and they were like rating him, and I was like, come with me, I'll get you out of this. And I had no idea who it was. and like we're standing inside and he goes, I'm Robin Yount. And I go, oh. I just had no clue. I just saw that he was getting murdered and the fans were all over him, and I just got him out of that mess. I probably could have got fired because I had no clue. I just drugged some guy that I knew was pretty happening. And anyway, that's a long time ago. Yeah, it was fun working at PNC Park. That was fun. That was, but anyway, so those were the bottom teams, the 18 teams that didn't make it last year. Are there any teams you guys feel that are going to possibly take a downfall from the final 12? And I didn't write them down for some reason. I thought I did. I must not have saved them. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, let me see here. I have my list of teams up here. Hold on.
I think
I am sorry.
The Astros are a question mark. I mean, they made the wild card last year, but I can see them missing the playoffs this year. I mean, they went and got, some replacements. They got Isaac Paredes and they got Walker for first. He's hurt right now. But I think they're just relying on their young guys, and I don't know how stable that's going to be to try and make a playoff run. And I know the city of Houston is very much used to being in the playoffs. And I think seeing Altuve in left field is definitely comical and interesting. I don't know if you've seen some of his plays, but there's a reason that spring training, we have spring training. But I think they're a question mark, and I don't know if it would be a disappointing season, after losing a lot of their veterans, but I think it could be a down year for them this year. Especially if the A's and the Rangers are better, I think they could be 4th or 5th in that division. And
yeah.
like you said, I mean, I guess we were talking about the Orioles, but that's one I think will regress.
Yeah, if there's one team I think that has a chance to regress this year, I want to say Atlanta, but I can't say that with a lot of confidence because Brian Snitker is one of the best managers in the game. I think he's one of the top 5 managers right now, and he knows how to get the most out of his talent. But I mean, Ronald Acuna is going to be coming off his second knee surgery in the last 5 years. And it's tough to recover from one ACL injury and make it back to what you were before. But to come off 2 ACL surgeries, especially when you look at a guy like Acuna who plays with his hair on fire every single game, and I love it. I love watching Acuna. He makes the game exciting. I just don't know what kind of speed he's going to have left recovering from that surgery. And that is a huge part of his game. As much as he can hit for power, hit for average, he's a good pull hitter, good opposite field hitter. It's the speed that really makes him dangerous because he can stretch a single into a triple in the blink of an eye. And I just don't know how his injury is going to affect Atlanta's core. So, I mean, if Atlanta does take a step back, I don't think it's going to be by a lot. Because that NL East, I'm not giving the Mets the slam dunk in that division yet. I want to see if Juan Soto can go out there and fill the position somewhat adequately. And from what I've seen this spring, Michaela, he looks like Bozo the Clown out there in right field. Watching Soto try and catch a fly ball in right field is like watching Chris Dudley shoot a free throw for the New York Knicks. It's horrendous. So, but with that being said, again, I think Atlanta might take a step back, but not a big enough step. I also think Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's really going to miss Willy Adames a lot more than they're willing to admit. That's a lot of pressure offensively to put on a guy like Christian Yelich, who hasn't – I mean, he's had injury problems again this spring. So you don't know what you're going to get out of Yelich. You don't know what you're going to get. They have some good young players there. Jackson Chourio is the real deal. But still, without Willy Adames there, that's a big hole they're missing in that lineup. So I think Atlanta – Milwaukee will probably take some step backs this year.
I don't disagree with you on Juan Soto. I think he got paid and I think he's comfortable. I also think it's a really bad look whenever you just got $700 million and you can't even show up to the team's fan fest because you're busy. And seeing the contract where there's a clothing allowance for your mother. What? I mean, I'm a woman. I would love a clothing allowance, but in a major league player contract, there's an allowance for your mother. Like it just seems high maintenance to me, and it seems like a lot of it was optics. And I think New York, the Yankees, are better off without him. That was kind of going back to the winter meetings. That was kind of the feel of whenever I was talking to Boone. Okay, moving on. That's how it is. And I think there was probably some clubhouse issues. I don't want to say issues is the right word, but just wasn't exactly the best fit in the clubhouse for the Yankees with him maybe. And I think, yeah, it's great for the fans that Juan Soto's still, in New York with the Mets, but I don't think he has a better year than he did last year.
Well, we all know the talent that he has. The talent obviously is not the question. But for me, the talent with Juan Soto is one dimension in that he's a tremendous hitter. He's a dangerous hitter. When he gets on hot streaks and he's on a heater, good luck trying to cool him off. But I've really paid a lot of attention to him defensively this year, more than I did when he played with San Diego and more than I did when he played with Washington. And when I watch him play right field, Michaela, and if you disagree with me, don't be afraid to do that. But when I watch him play right field, it's like, to me, he never sees the ball off the bat. And he's always guessing on where to take a route. And I remember, having played ball for 12 years, one of the first things I learned as an outfielder was one of the first things you have to do to be successful in the outfield is you have to be able to track the ball coming off the hitter's bat. When you can take good routes and you track the ball, you're going to do really well in that position. And it just seems like Soto doesn't do that. Like he doesn't anticipate. He waits for after the play to happen to make a play. And that's what I've seen a lot of him this spring. He takes a lot of circuitous routes to the ball. And there was one play where he came in on the ball and it went 30 feet over his head. And you could clearly tell he didn't know his left from his right. So, I mean, as good a hitter as he is, I mean, baseball is a two-way sport for one reason. I mean, you got to hit, but you also have to be able to field your position adequately. And no one's going to mistake him for Roberto Clemente. At least I don't think they will.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. We had there's a similar player, not with Juan Soto, but similar issues with Kyle Isbell and the Kansas City Royals. Can't take a route and just always takes the wrong one. Yeah. And then, he made a great diving catch. No, it wasn't a great play. He took the wrong route and had to make up for it. And so I think you see that a lot. And I think that's where, you make these great plays. Half the time it's because you read it wrong in the beginning. It should have just been a very easy play, routine play. But you read it wrong. So now it looks way harder than it was. So I don't disagree with you, Jay.
How bad is this Stanton Carlo? How bad is that injury? Does anyone know?
I don't think it's looking good.
Yeah, it's not. Well, I think he had to have surgery on both elbows, didn't he, Michaela?
I know he got injections on both.
Okay.
I don't know if he. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're a hitter like Giancarlo Stanton, who has some of the best pure power of any hitter his generation, having those elbow injuries is not good. What's even worse is that the organization has done a very good job at being tight-lipped about what type of elbow injuries they are. We don't know if it's related to his UCLs and his elbows. We don't know if they're strains. We don't know if they're pulls. We don't know if he has hairline fractures. We don't know what's going on. All the organization has said is he has elbow problems. So it's very ambiguous for a reason. And plus
That
with
and now a calf strain on top of it as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah, I
know
was
that.
gonna say I thought I read a new injury. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple days ago, he now has a calf strain on top of both of his elbow issues, which they're, I mean, I think the most I've seen them say is tennis elbow, but also has a calf strain now.
So is anyone ready to come up and fill this position, or are they going to sign a free agent?
I don't think they know. I think they know, they just aren't saying, is what it is. Because obviously, I mean, spring training's 10 days, 9 days away, or not spring training, opening day. Like, they know. I just don't think they want to say it yet. And I don't think they want other teams to know just how bad Stanton's injury is.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if they know how bad it is yet either.
I know I was hoping the Pirates would have went after Verdugo, but that's just me. Because we definitely need an outfielder and a leadoff guy. But that's just me.
But yeah, he had PRP in both elbows, I think last week. With I think they said the earliest is Memorial Day that he would be back. But I don't know what they're gonna do without him.
Yeah, it's almost a month, almost over a month.
Yeah.
2 months. 6 to 8 weeks, right? Is that what they're calling it? 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Yep.
Instead of scaring people by saying 2 months.
Well, Rev just put in the comment thread here, Adam, that he saw a JD Martinez rumor for Stanton. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe they could scoop up JD Martinez, who was still out there on the open market.
Yeah, there's a couple guys out there still on that free agent market that have me surprised why they're not getting signed. But I'm not a GM and I don't know this stuff. But I mean, we could sit here and look at the names all day and say why ain't he signed? Now, Michaela, you'd probably have the best inside scoop on why they're not signed, but whether you can tell us or not, it's a whole nother story.
I think a lot of it tends to come down to what teams are willing to pay and what the agents are willing to accept for the player. And as the season goes on, players get a little bit more desperate to play, but historically some agents ask for a lot when the market isn't there and think they can get it for their player and then they can't. And, let's say they wanted $20 million and a team offered them $15 million in December, didn't take it because they wanted $20 million. Well, now they'll pay them 10. So you just lost $5 million. But I think a lot of the time that's what's going on is the player and the agent want more. Team's not willing to do it. And the agent and the player are hoping that you have an injury like Stanton, where now the Yankees do need to go sign someone. Or, okay, let's see if someone does get hurt during spring training. And now, the team is a little bit more desperate to pay someone a little bit more. So you do have that factoring into it a bit too.
Gotcha. So have you made any predictions for the final two in the end in the fall classic, or aren't you? You don't have to.
I haven't, because I think, baseball is who's hot at the right time. And I saw that last year. We talked about this earlier with the Detroit Tigers. They were hot at the right time, and boy, they were good. Didn't have the pitching depth. You can't exactly go into the playoffs with a bullpen day every 3 days. But I think a lot of it will depend, and this will probably come August, who's hot at the right time. So I can't put my final 2 predictions. I can put my, division winners. I said that the other day, which is Red Sox.
Go with?
I go Red Sox, Rangers, Royals. And then on the National League, I have the Braves, the Cubs, and the Dodgers. I think the NL East, though, is a little bit up for grabs, but I'm not giving it to the Mets just because it's the Mets. They signed Juan Soto. But those are my predictions for the division winners.
Nice. We haven't made ours yet, have we, Jay?
No, but you know what? I think Michaela pretty much said what mine are going to be. I'm pretty much in agreement with her picks, and she's right. Really you can't handicap the success of the game the way you used to before the wild card. Arizona and Texas went to the World Series 2 years ago because they got hot at the right time, and they were both wild card teams. And that's why, even though I'm extremely happy with all the moves the Dodgers made and all the success they've had, the wild card scares the hell out of me because all it takes is that hot team to ruin your season, ruin your streak, whatever. And I guess, whoa, where am I going with this? So I guess if I had to comfortably say a World Series contender, obviously in the National League, the Dodgers. But then again, like I also said, I don't want to sound hypocritical here. Again, the wild card scares me. If you come back and ask me this question in late July, early August, I can probably give you a more comfortable answer. But I'll just stick with the same division winners that Michaela has, and especially in that AL Central. God, I love Kansas City. Kansas City proved a lot last year. Yeah, the AL Central is going to be a tough division again too. But Bobby Witt Jr. Oh my God. Me personally, I love Aaron Judge. You know how much of a Judge fan I am, not only because I covered him at Fresno State, but I went to Fresno State also. But I thought Bobby Witt should have been the American League MVP last year. When you look at the definition of what MVP is, the most valuable player, if you took Judge off the Yankees roster last year, they still would have been able to manufacture runs and be a good ball club. Juan Soto was there, obviously. They had a lot of other ways to score runs. You take Bobby Witt off the Kansas City Royals lineup, and they are much different. You pull him away from the defense, they are much different. So, yeah, I like the division predictions, same as Michaela's. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that right now.
There's our Angel guy.
Angels stay healthy. They're winning the division. I'm not counting out Athletics. They're going to be a sleeper team. Well, hey, I mean, that's, we all have our own opinions. That's his opinion. And hey, more power to you.
Dude, that's Rally Chris. Huge Angels fan. Always Angels. He'd probably take him to the grave with him. Anyway, yeah, I like Boston. I like Chicago. Yeah, I want to say the Pirates, but I can't do it. Maybe a wild card. Maybe a little bit of hope. Maybe, but I think it's going to be a long season for them. I'm thinking 83 wins for the Pirates. That's it, which is more than last year.
Right.
It's more than last year.
Yep.
So. Yeah, we got an hour, guys, almost. Michaela, anything else you want to wrap up? Anything you want to throw out there? Any podcasts you got coming up? Any, I let people promote themselves.
Well, I am on Twitter. It's MichaelaB_22. Everything I do is usually on there with where I'm at, what I'm covering, where I'm going. It's been super fun being out here in spring training right now. I know we briefly talked about the AL Central, but the Kansas City Royals, they have a young guy, Jack Caglione, who was their first rounder last year. This kid is a stud. Talk about Bobby Witt, but talk about it's Bobby Witt Jr. and Aaron Judge had a baby. This dude's 6'5", 250. He's 6'5", 250. He had the home run record at Florida. He was a two-way player at Florida. Kid's incredible. Plays first base. He's a lefty. Don't know where to put him. First base is clogged. They got Vinny. They got Salvi. So it's just, I think that kid is going to be a very big impact for the Royals, maybe second half. I don't know. I don't think they'll start his clock for opening day. but I think he could give the Royals a nice little energy boost in the second half of the season, which will be fun to watch. But yeah, been covering the Royals for, 5 seasons now, which is crazy. But yeah, I'm always around, always happy to answer questions. Pretty active on Twitter. So that's my final thoughts.
So my final thoughts, if you guys are so inclined, you can connect with me at Dodger Jason. That's my X/Twitter handle. And I don't have the fortunate distinction of covering Major League Baseball. I'm just a lowly, measly high school sports reporter here in the Central Valley of California. But hey, I still love my job nonetheless. So yeah, feel free to connect with me. Michaela, I may decide to follow you. Don't worry, I'm not stalking you. But so anyway, yeah, I love talking about the game. Baseball, aside from my wife and my daughter, baseball is my love. Love the sport ever since I was 5 years old. And if you guys want to hit me up, follow me, talk anything about the game, whether you agree or disagree or not, I'm all for it.
I am at Sports Talking It on Twitter. Obviously, you can get us on Driving to the Top Productions on the oh my gosh, the YouTube channel. Look for the dog. She hates me right now. Usually she jumps up and does a little cameo, but not today. Michaela, I thank you for coming on. If I ever asked you to come on again, hopefully you say yes.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
We try to talk ball. We usually have a little bit more of a roundhouse than this, but if Brandon was here, he'd be fighting with us, or Chase, he'd be fighting because he's our Brewers guy.
We need to get Logan back here. Yadier Molina, Logan.
No, jeez, yeah.
Goodness.
But yeah, that's about it. I thank Jay for coming on. I know last minute, but and Michaela, thank you for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. And everybody have a good evening.
Thanks guys. Thanks for having me.